The galactic arena pulsed with energy, a colossal dome suspended in orbit above the glowing blue curve of Earth. Within its shimmering barriers, creatures from dozens of star systems gathered. Warriors bred on volcanic moons, insectoid strategists with neural implants, hulking beasts with fusion claws, all drawn by the spectacle of the Galactic Games. Earth had been invited for the first time, an honor, they were told, a recognition of rising relevance. But within 2 days, that honor had turned into mockery. On the massive holoscreen circling the arena, slow-motion replays showed Earth's finest, elite soldiers, seasoned martial artists, being tossed aside like toys. One was swatted out of the ring by a four-armed combatant with no legs. Another was disarmed, disrobed, and humiliated in front of trillions. The galactic audience roared with laughter. Commentators dubbed Earth's performance primitive ballet. Memes of flailing humans flooded the interstellar net. Back home, morale plummeted. The Earth Coalition, a shaky union of nations desperate for interplanetary respect, debated withdrawal. Pride was bruised. They had sent champions, decorated, well-trained, technologically equipped, and watched them crumble. The Secretary of Global Defense, Miriam Kwan, stood silent as her advisors bickered over strategy. None had answers, only embarrassment. Then came the message. It arrived not through diplomatic channels, but in an envelope, paper of all things, slid under the door of the Coalition Command. Inside, a single sentence written in black ink. You've forgotten the shadows. At first, no one took it seriously. But Kwan, exhausted and humiliated, made a call. She had heard whispers of the Yamato Order, an ancient sect hidden in the mountainous edges of what was once Japan. Their warriors had trained in silence, away from politics, away from technology, ghosts in the modern world. A meeting was arranged. In a small chamber lit only by paper lanterns, Kwan met the man known only as Kaze. He bowed deeply, his eyes sharp and unreadable beneath a half-mask. No boast, no show of strength, just presence. You want to represent Earth? She asked. I want to remind the stars that shadows do not laugh, he said. There were no press releases, no briefings. Kaze was registered for Earth's final match, an exhibition battle, more of a pity slot than redemption. No one expected anything, not even Earth's own people. It was a mercy showing, a final joke. The arena was packed. Kaze stepped into the ring alone, wrapped in a fitted suit of black armor. No helmet, no visible weapons. His stance was narrow, almost relaxed, one hand resting lightly near his waist. Across from him stood a Zarthian brute, 3 meters tall with twin plasma blades and armor thicker than a tank's skin. The crowd buzzed in anticipation of another swift defeat. The buzzer sounded. Kaze didn't move. The brute charged. The first attack came like a meteor strike, plasma blades whistling through the air. Kaze slid an inch to the left. The blades carved through empty space. Then he stepped in impossibly fast and placed 2 fingers against the brute's armor. There was a sound like cracking ice. The Zarthian collapsed, armor shattered inward. Unconscious, the silence that followed was louder than the cheers that eventually erupted. No one spoke for a full minute. Replay drones tried to capture the moment. Frame by frame, they showed Kaze redirecting kinetic energy with a twist of the wrist, folding around the attack like silk around a blade. No gadgets, no enhancements, just movement. The commentator's voice cracked as he spoke. Earth wins. Within hours, the clip reached every corner of the galaxy. Analysts rewound the footage endlessly. Some called it magic. Others called it the perfect counter. But all agreed on one thing. This was no ordinary human. In the Coalition chamber, Kwan watched the broadcast, arms crossed. Who trained this man? No one answered. Kaze returned to the Earth compound without ceremony. He sat cross-legged in the corner of the training hall and closed his eyes. When the Coalition's military attaché offered him advanced weaponry for the next match, he declined. I already carry what I need. The next match came with anticipation. This time, the opponent was a cybernetic predator from the Drax Syndicate. No one laughed at Kaze's entry. When the predator activated its stealth cloak, the crowd murmured in approval. But Kaze moved with purpose, drawing chalk dust from a small pouch and tossing it into the air. The predator's outline flickered. Kaze moved once. The predator fell. Not dead, but very, very still. They began calling him the ghost of Earth. And slowly, the laughter stopped. Behind every victory, Kaze returned to silence. He refused interviews. He meditated between matches. He spoke only when spoken to. He never gloated. The galaxy had seen brute force, psychic might, technological marvels, but it had never seen discipline like this. Control, so precise it looked effortless. Fearless calm in the face of monsters. And now, Earth had one final chance to face the Galactic Champion. The schedule was posted that night. A week from now, Kaze would fight Gork the Unbroken. The arena lights dimmed. The crowd dispersed in stunned silence. Somewhere in the shadows, Kaze tightened the wrappings on his gloves. He would not lose. He could not afford to. Not for pride. For memory. Kaze stood at the threshold of the arena once more, surrounded by silence that felt heavier than noise. The galactic spectators, once a sea of jeering mouths and shaking shoulders, watched now with breathless fascination. Every step he took onto the polished metal floor echoed with anticipation. He did not stride. He flowed, a ripple of midnight in a world too used to thunder. Across from him stood his next opponent, a cyborg gladiator designated Varnak 7, a product of pure war, stripped of biological identity. Varnak was all armor and muscle wire, his arms tipped with vibroblades, his legs designed for high-impact kinetic strikes. Where Kaze's movement promised poetry, Varnak's design promised devastation. The match had been framed as a spectacle of contrast. Flesh against steel, tradition against progress. A countdown began. Kaze didn't blink. His right hand hovered near his belt, not to draw a weapon, but to feel the weight of nothing. There was no fear in his stillness, only precision, a distilled calm honed through years of repetition and discipline. The moment the timer struck 0, Varnak surged forward. He moved like a freight train, each step collapsing the floor beneath him, blades whirling with an audible shriek that made even the front-row audience recoil. But Kaze didn't move to meet him. He waited. Half a second before impact, he dropped low and pivoted under the swipe, hands brushing the floor, and came up behind the cyborg with surgical economy. A strike landed. 2 fingers pressed at the base of Varnak's spine, at a cluster of exposed servos. The giant shuddered. A stuttering pause. Then his left leg buckled. The crowd gasped. Varnak twisted, recalibrating mid-motion. His systems adjusted. Kaze was already gone, a blur at the edge of his sensors. Another strike, this time to the elbow joint. Sparks flew. What followed wasn't a fight, not in the traditional sense. It was disassembly. Kaze dismantled Varnak piece by piece, never staying in one place long enough to be caught, always targeting with intention. He wasn't aiming to destroy. He was demonstrating. Earth didn't need overwhelming power. It needed precision. Varnak collapsed to one knee, disabled but intact. The referee called it. Kaze stepped back into shadow. No celebration. No raised fists. Just breath, measured and controlled. That night, the networks exploded. Dozens of species had been watching. Analysts were confounded. One, a Selenari war historian, stated, "He fights as though he sees time a second ahead." Others called him the universe's most dangerous myth. But the matches weren't over. Each victory brought a harder challenge. Word had spread across systems. Fighters volunteered, no longer to humiliate Earth, but to test themselves. Kaze faced an amphibious blade dancer from the marsh worlds next, known for triple-jointed limbs and venom-laced claws. The arena filled with artificial rain. To mimic her home environment, she struck like lightning. Kaze responded like water. She spiraled in, blades flashing in synchronized chaos. But Kaze was not there. Each movement he made invited her to follow, to overextend. When she slipped in the slick surface, he offered no cruelty, just a single pressure point at the base of her neck, and then retreat. She yielded before she fell. The galaxy began to shift its tone. Reporters no longer mocked. They questioned. Who was he? Where did he learn this? Why had Earth hidden him until now? Kaze ignored it all. In the training chamber beneath the arena, he knelt in silence each night. He listened to the arena's hum, the subtle whine of distant gravity stabilizers, and the rhythm of his own heart. He did not fear the challenges. But something loomed, undeniable and constant. Gorik. Word spread of the champion's preparation. Gorik the Unbroken had watched each of Kaze's matches in silence, not from the stands, but from his personal war deck, surrounded by advisors and tactical holograms. He had won the Galactic Games for 6 cycles. His combat style blended raw force with ancestral ferocity. He wielded twin crescent blades that sang in battle, armor forged in neutron storms. No fighter had lasted more than 3 minutes against him, and yet he had not spoken a word about Kaze. Not to his people, not to his commanders. Silence for silence. Then, the unexpected happened. Between matches, Kaze walked the quiet halls of the arena compound and found a gift placed outside his door. A folded piece of cloth, black, ceremonial, and marked with Gorik's clan emblem. It was not a challenge. It was a gesture of recognition, a warrior's respect. He unfolded the cloth, examined it for a moment, then refolded it carefully and placed it on the ground beside his mat. He knew what it meant. Gorik was ready. The final match was in 3 days. In the halls of Power Back on Earth, officials scrambled to draft speeches, prepare for global broadcasts. Quan, ever the realist, sent no orders, only one quiet message. Fight how you always have. No more, no less. Kaze read it, then turned the screen off. The galaxy buzzed with anticipation. The stakes had changed. This was no longer about a laughingstock redeeming itself. It had become something far more dangerous. Proof that Earth was not weak, not primitive, that humanity had within it something unquantifiable, something alien to the rest of the galaxy. The crowd for the final match was projected to be the largest in Galactic Games history, not for the spectacle, for the story. Kaze stood again at the edge of the arena, looking out at the stars beyond a transparent dome, knowing that next time he entered that ring, it would be against Gorik, and no shadow, no silence would hide him then. The final match day dawned not with fanfare, but with an almost reverent quiet. The Galactic Arena, which once roared with laughter at Earth's expense, now hummed with a tension that clung to the walls like static. Billions tuned in across systems. Traders on asteroids, nobles in palatial orbs, mercenaries aboard rusting warships, all waiting to see if the impossible could unfold. The fall of Gorik the Unbroken. Kaze awoke long before the artificial sun rose in the arena's orbiting station. He knelt in the same position he had every day since his arrival, eyes closed, palms resting lightly on his thighs. But his breath came slower this time, deeper. He wasn't calming himself. He was ready. In the preparation chamber, a medic offered him an injection, a blend of performance enhancers permitted in the games. Kaze declined with a silent shake of his head. She hesitated, clearly wanted to speak, then bowed and left. Even those who didn't understand his path had come to respect it. A low chime signaled the final call. Kaze stood, adjusted the wrappings around his forearms, and walked the narrow corridor toward the arena gate. At its far end, a massive shadow loomed behind shimmering force fields. Gorik the Unbroken waited. The champion stood over 8 feet tall, shoulders draped in scale battlecloth, arms thick with ritual scars. His twin crescent blades rested against his back, humming faintly with embedded charge cores. His face, part beast, part war god, bore no sneer, no smugness, only stillness. There was no underestimation. Not anymore. As the gate slid open and the 2 warriors stepped onto the platform, the arena dimmed, casting them into a spotlight of artificial starlight. The commentator's voice rang out, but even it held back the usual bravado. This was not spectacle now. This was ceremony. Neither fighter bowed. The signal pulsed. Gorik moved first. Unlike the others Kaze had faced, there was no testing of waters, no probing jabs or showmanship. Gorik advanced like an avalanche, fluid yet unstoppable. His first swing could have split a shuttlecraft. Kaze evaded, but only just. The blade kissed the edge of his sleeve, leaving a smoking line across the fabric. He responded with a low strike aimed at the champion's knee. Gorik twisted and blocked with the shaft of his other blade, then countered with a backhand slash. Kaze ducked. Not effortlessly, not like before. This was different. Gorik was fast, unreasonably so for his size. And he was smart. Every strike had purpose, each feint designed to force a reaction. He wasn't just stronger. He was older, wiser, patient. A predator who had seen every style, broken every master. Kaze knew he couldn't win by being faster. Not this time. He shifted his approach. No longer darting away. He stepped into Gorik's range, forcing the champion to adjust, to adapt. They locked arms briefly, flesh against fury, and the arena gasped as Kaze was thrown backwards, flipping once before landing in a crouch. Pain flared along his ribs. Something had cracked. He steadied his breathing, grounding himself. The next exchange was a blur. Gorik pressed, relentless. Kaze yielded, not in surrender but in strategy, giving ground to create angles. He struck at Gorik's foot, forcing a pivot, then at his shoulder joint. The blade parried, but Kaze wasn't aiming to harm. He was mapping the pattern, learning the rhythm. Then he saw it. In the fury of Gorik's movement, one motion repeated two perfectly. A mid-step recalibration, a habit born from an old injury or old arrogance. It created a half-beat of exposure. Not much, but enough. The next moment, Kaze let himself be hit. Not fatally, not foolishly. He caught a grazing blow across his left shoulder, spun with it, and collapsed. The crowd rose in a collective breath. Gorik strode forward, blades lowered slightly, eyes watching for motion. Kaze lay still, then moved, not to strike, but to vanish. With a sudden burst, he slid beneath Gorik's stance, past the blades, past power. He rose at the champion's back and placed 3 rapid strikes along his spine, each a precise echo of nerve, bone, and balance. Gorik stumbled. The first time he had faltered in 6 years. The arena erupted, but the fight was not over. Gorik roared, spinning, swinging wide. Kaze took a step back, then another. The champion was not crippled, but the tide had turned. The flow was shifting. Now, Gorik hesitated. Kaze didn't press the advantage. He waited, watching, mirroring. He could end it, but not with brute force. That was not the lesson. Gorik lowered one blade, a silent concession, a gesture older than the games themselves. The referee didn't speak, uncertain. Kaze bowed, and then Gorik bowed back. The signal ended. There was no declaration, no trumpets, just stillness. Then, one by one, those in the arena began to stand. The crowd rose, not in celebration, but in respect. The fight had ended not with a fall, but with understanding. Earth had not conquered. It had earned its place. Kaze turned and walked away, the wound on his shoulder still smoking, breath tight, every step deliberate. Behind him, Gorik stood in silence, unmoving. The galaxy watched and, for the first time, did not laugh. The shuttle hummed low as it slipped through Earth's stratosphere, streaking silently across the dark edge of dawn. Within its cabin, Kaze sat alone, eyes closed, his breath steady despite the storm of change behind him. The Galactic Games were over. The arena, once a crucible of humiliation, had become Earth's proving ground. And though his name was whispered across the stars, Kaze felt no triumph, only stillness. He had not won for applause. He had not bowed for glory. But the consequences of his choices, of every strike, every refusal to break character, now rippled to the corridors of power and shadow. In the days that followed the match, invitations flooded Earth's diplomatic channels. Ambassadors from once dismissive empires sought alliances. Merchant fleets offered trade. Weapons manufacturers begged for insight into the human martial advantage. Earth had not just been seen, it had been acknowledged. But power brings hunger, and not all interest was benign. In the high towers of the Coalition Council, Secretary Miriam Kwan reviewed a security report with growing unease. Kaze's victory had reshaped their place in the galaxy overnight, but it also painted a target on his back. Intel from Amira's syndicate revealed a bounty had been placed on Earth's phantom warrior. Not to kill, but to capture, to study, to unravel the mystery that defied every known algorithm of combat. We can't protect him, one advisor said. He refuses to stay in one place. He doesn't answer to us. He's not ours command, Quan replied quietly. But he had returned, without ceremony, without guards. Kaze had stepped off the shuttle and vanished into the misted hills of what was once Japan, back to the Yamato Order, to the silence from which he had come. No interviews, no messages, just absence. 4 days, Earth watched the stars, waiting. Then the incident occurred. A freighter outbound from Ganymede was ambushed near the Kuiper Belt. Aboard was a diplomatic envoy carrying a sealed archive of Earth's cultural data, harmless to most, but sacred to Kaze. Among the items was a centuries-old katana, one passed down through his order for generations. He had allowed it to travel only as a symbol of peace. The attackers weren't pirates. They were precision mercenaries, augmented with off-world biotech. And they left one message carved into the freighter's hull. No shadow hides forever. Earth's leaders debated retaliation, diplomacy, subterfuge. But before any action could be taken, another message arrived, encrypted, direct, and brief. I will retrieve what was stolen. No name, no origin, but they knew. Kaze had left the hills. The mission wasn't sanctioned. No military escort, no diplomatic cover. He traveled alone, passing unseen through lunar ports and hollowed asteroid markets. Along the way, whispers followed him. The ghost of Earth was on the move again. Some welcomed the news. Others locked their vaults. His destination was clear. The black market stronghold of VA Tool, a mobile fortress orbiting the dying star Eshkur 9, untouchable by formal channels, guarded by war beasts and shielded by ion storms. But walls, Kaze knew, were built to stop those who move with noise. He arrived in silence. The fortress guards never saw him. Cameras showed only flickers of motion, like wind shadows on stone. Alarms triggered, then failed. One by one, the outer rings of defense fell, not with explosions, but with stillness. Inside, the leader of a mercenary cell waited. A creature named Drexel, half machine, half arachnid, its limbs bristling with embedded weapons. It had prepared for brute force. Plasma turrets, shield domes, combat protocols modeled after Gork himself. It had not prepared for Kaze. The confrontation was brief. Not a duel, an inevitability. Drexel lunged. Kaze evaded. A single touch to a sensory node. Collapse. Kaze retrieved the katana. Not for vengeance. For remembrance. As he left the fortress, Drexel remained alive. Barely. The message was left in fire, not words. Back on Earth, the diplomatic climate shifted again. The galaxy no longer merely respected Earth. Now, it feared what lay beneath its surface. A species that could forge a warrior with no weapons, no enhancements, yet dismantle the strongest with a whisper of movement. And still, Kaze said nothing. He returned the katana to the shrine at his mountain temple, lit a single lantern, sat beneath the falling snow. When Quan's message reached him, an offer to serve as Earth's official guardian, he declined, as she had expected. But he added something for the first time. If I am needed again, you will not have to ask. She closed the message with a rare smile. Across the stars, in quiet corners and shadowed courts, his story was told and retold, not as a tale of Earth's power, but of its discipline, a lesson to species that had forgotten the value of silence, of control. Kaze was not a soldier. He was a reminder that in the vast noise of the galaxy, even the quietest voice could strike like thunder. And somewhere among the stars, he waited, watching,